Hello everyone and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have a Toshiba Satellite 4200 series on the bench that was graciously donated by longtime viewer Ryan. So Ryan, thank you so much for donating this beautiful piece of equipment to the Retro Recall. I always love when someone donates something to the channel because it has just a little more value, special value versus going to a thrift store, say, or to an online marketplace. So again, Ryan, thank you so much for donating this laptop to the channel. Now, this laptop, as I mentioned, was manufactured in the year 2000. And today what we're going to do, we're going to go over this machine, basically see what it came with back then and see if it actually turns on and what might be on it. So you know what? We have lots to do. Let's get right to it. And welcome back. Now, Toshiba is a brand that I never really got into when I was growing up in this era. I always went towards IBM ThinkPads or the Dell Latitude lines, even Dell Inspiron lines, that sort of thing for the laptops that I call them laptops, but notebook PCs that I had over the years. And Toshiba is something I saw more like in businesses or, university and things like that, but I never really got into the Toshiba line, even less so as years went on, because for whatever reason, it just did not interest me at all in the design of these machines. But again, getting something from the year 2000 is really like a timestamp in time, considering this machine is 24 years old. And I really want to see what it came with from the era, as well as what is potentially installed. And these are like a time capsule, right? I mean, the hardware itself, being able to talk about all the different things that came with, but also if the hard disk is intact, then, what kind of installation at the time this was kind of put out to pasture, as it were. Now, Ryan indicated that this was something that he found from his parents and essentially just kind of sat there for years in the closet and just did nothing. And when he came across it, he said, listen, I'm not going to power it up. I couldn't find the power cable for it, which I do have a spare one for this machine, actually, which was very convenient. But essentially he said, hey, you know what? It's yours. We can get it working great. And I said, you know what? I'll do a video on it. So here we are. We're going to take our chances. So on the front, we have this kind of like gray design. Now, laptops at the time were, different colors. Dell were coming out with all their different color designs. IBM at the time, of course, always stuck with that black finish with that kind of coating on the top that everyone loved at the time, but hated much later in life when it started to gum all up and peel off and things like that. But this is a very, it feels kind of a cheap design, to be honest with you. The plastic is just very, very cheap feeling, in my opinion. But again, it has this kind of little design in it with the Toshiba logo right on the front for everyone to see, of course, when you open up the lid. On the front, we don't have much going on until we hit over here. So we do have a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive that is incorporated into the design. And I love this, that it actually comes with 3.5-inch floppy. And normally in some of the machines of this era, you'd have either one or the other. So they'd have modular drives, like similar to what Dell and Lenovo had, or IBM, I should say, had done. But it's nice having this directly integrated into the chassis and for the user for convenience. So it is a 3.5-inch floppy. One of the things about these drives over the years I found is that due to the use of them at the time, depending on what they were used for, is that heavy use really created a lot of dirt and grime inside. So you really have to take these apart and oil the springs and things like that inside just to make sure everything's working just fine. But again, it's nice having that built in, but this is not modular by any means. It's just directly into the machine. And on the right side, we have our screen again. We have our profile. It's not too bad when it comes to the actual height of the machine itself, the thickness. And we went from years of thick to thin over the years, but the thickest, we do have it sitting at 1.5, just over 1.5 inches thick. So it's interesting to see how far we've come. But you do have the modem jack by the looks of things, and I believe there's a 56K modem that is integrated into this machine. And over here, we do have a DVD-ROM, CD-ROM drive. So I want to talk about this for a moment because these machines, based on my research, also came with just a regular 24-speed CD-ROM drive. to have the actual DVD-ROM drive would have been an upgrade at the time, or a special model at the time to incorporate the DVD functionality back in 2000. And the DVD-ROM speed at the time was a 6-speed DVD-ROM. And then over here, we also have some additional ventilation of what we see, which is nice, that having that extra cooling, any cooling available on a machine is great. And along the back, we have lots of ports. Let's go over them. So over here, we do have a 9-pin serial port, which is great to have on these machines. And again, I mentioned this in other videos that, people still use these machines today in industrial applications because of that 9-pin. I mean, like I said, between the USB to 9-pin serial port adapters, they're not as, I think there's some issues with the data communications through those versus authentic original hardware. And when it comes to this, it's nice having these machines up and running, because people do take these machines that have those serial ports and use those in those applications. We also have an external, it looks like a VGA port, a 15-pin VGA. We do have an RCA out for video out, which is nice. Not too often I saw these on laptops, to be honest with you, is having that video out. Usually it was S-video, so it's nice seeing that RCA port. We also have a plastic bezel kind of missing from here, but it looks like an infrared port that we have for external communications, say for printers or PDAs. We do have a USB port here by the looks of things, and that is, of course, USB 1, given the year. We have this kind of rubber grommet that's on here. Let's just pull that off to see if I can access it. Yeah, okay. So this does have a docking port, and I believe they called their docking ports card stations or port replicators. So there were different versions. So I imagine the card stations came with PC card capability, whereas the port replicators just kind of had additional ports where you can connect an external monitor, keyboard, mouse, kind of the basics. And that wasn't uncommon back in the day, depending on what you had. But having the Toshiba Pro series is more of the commercial line or the business line. So having that port replication is not uncommon, that expansion. So we do have our connector for our power supply. It is a 15-volt power supply. I don't remember the amperage offhand, but again, having that is great. And of course, we have our PS2 connection here for either a mouse or a keyboard. And then of course, we have our LPT, our 25-pin printer port, which is great as well for connecting up printers at the time. So again, having that all integrated into the I/O is wonderful. Okay, checking out the other side, we do have some additional ventilation by the looks of things. We do have what looks like a power cable. We have a little lock down below here. So it's unlock and lock by the looks of things. There's a little toggle. And from what I saw online, it has to do with the PC card functionality. So being able to lock and unlock the PC cards themselves. And of course, we do have the ability to put two PC cards here installed. And then it comes with a little eject here as well. And over here, we do have two audio jacks. We have looks like a microphone as well as a headphone jack and a volume control knob. So you can control that basically headphones if you have them plugged in. You control the volume with this little knob over here. So pretty straightforward when it comes to the design of the machine. Okay, on the bottom, we have our battery, which is intact and installed in this machine, which is great. I don't know if it's going to hold any charge. I imagine after 24 years, it probably is not going to, but it is installed nonetheless. A lot of these machines that I get, whether it's from e-waste or I find in Marketplace, the batteries are gone. They're just tossed out. And in terms of the looks of the machine, I'd like to see that completely intact, especially when it has the feet on it. Some of these are integrated right into the battery chassis. So it's really important to me anyway to have that as part of it. And continuing on, we have some regulatory information. Toshiba 4260 system unit, and that gives us the model information. There's our amperage, is 3 amps on the 15 volt that I mentioned earlier. Some serial information, all those good things. And then over here we have an user accessible door. So I'm not exactly sure what is behind this. So let's do what we always do and do a little bit of investigative work and find out what is behind door number 1. My guess is going to be probably memory. I don't see any hard disk access, user accessible hard disk access, so it might be behind it. Okay, so it's just memory. It says PC 100 RAM. Let's very carefully unlock this. There we are. So I'm saying very carefully because the latches here are plastic versus metal, and these can, over the years, get very brittle of plastic. So it's very important you're very careful with these. But it looks like PC 100 RAM. We have Kingston, and it looks like 64 megabytes of memory. And from what I gather in the manual for this machine, this has the ability to go up to 320 megabytes of RAM. So really nice to have that expansion capability, specifically from the end user option. Now I'm going to very carefully try to get this back in because the plastic is not cooperating. I just want to be very careful here. Okay, so the memory back in, we're just going to pop that door back on. We don't want to lose anything as we're playing around with the machine, namely screws. I do have a pile of spare laptop screws, but you know how it is. Okay, and for the battery itself, to get the battery out, there's this little latch along the front, or the side, I should say. It just kind of shifts to the left, and it just lifts out. This whole thing just kind of lifts right out of the chassis. And usually when I look at a battery like this, I'm looking for any sort of bulging, any indication the battery is going to explode, and I'm not seeing any of that here. And generally, I don't see that in these batteries or any leakage over the years. I mean, it's 24 years old and it's still looking pretty good. So we're going to see what kind of condition it's in when we go to plug it in. Okay, let's pop that back on. Just kind of slides in, I guess. There we are. It's interesting, all the different machines and their designs. And here we are with the machine all opened up, and it's looking really nice and really good condition. And like I said, I was told that it was in good condition. It was put away years ago. So it would have been, like I said, locked in time at that point if it was just stored on a shelf in a closet. So up top, we do have our latch, which is in good condition. A lot of these latches over the years I found really degraded. We do have our flat panel display, and I believe it's 13.3 inch. They did come, according to the manual, in 14.1 as well as 15-inch TFT displays, all with a resolution of 1024 by 768, regardless of the size you got. Down below, we do have the Satellite Pro 4200 series noted. We have a couple of LED indicators. We have, it looks like a caps lock, num lock, and scroll lock by the looks of things. And we have Toshiba completely embossed directly into the plastics here, so you're not ever going to forget that it's a Toshiba machine. We do have a very clear, you can't see it too well because it's clear plastic, but it's just a little thing that goes up and down, like a little switch. It tells the machine when the lid is closed, when the screen is closed or not. We have a couple of nice little speakers here. I don't know what they sound like yet. We're going to find out as we go. So the keyboard itself reminds me of the Dell Latitude CPX machines that I've have done videos on, and I have a couple of those machines. And it does kind of remind me of that a little bit. I don't have it here to show you side by side, but it kind of gives me that idea. But the actual tactile feel of the keyboard itself is not bad. But like I said, I find that the Dells were a little more, and specifically the Novos or IBMs are known for their keyboards. But I just find that this is probably would be my third choice of the three if it were me picking. And I mean, as for the actual layout, I mean, it's very comfortable to type on. The palm rests are equally matched equally measured away from the keyboard, so that I'm able to comfortably type while keeping my hands in a nice position. So as far as that design goes, is nice. It does not have a trackpad, so when you're typing along, you're not going to accidentally bump into the trackpad and accidentally move the mouse or something. Now it does have this little track point. I call it a track point, but I mean, IBM was famous for that. Dell's got into it, and obviously the Toshiba professional line got into it. They actually call this the Toshiba AcuPoint, ACU-point. So that was their branding of the little nub in the middle there. So, I mean, obviously that would be the mouse control with the left and right mouse buttons here. And then I guess these are right mouse buttons here as well. I don't know how this layout is. Looks like kind of like a Wi-Fi antenna symbol with the mouse buttons. But either way, it's nice to, it feels really nice overall. Again, my third pick, but here we are. Now, as terms of the condition of it, a lot of the times I get these machines, and when you're clicking on them, there's a lot of dirt and grime underneath the actual keys. So you'll get a key stuck down, or sometimes you'll see like the spacebar, for example, depending on the mechanism of the spring, popped up on one side because those little plastic clips in the back of these keys that clip right into that metal housing tend to snap off. And so it's nice to see all of these intact and not missing, because obviously harder to get parts for these over the years. But overall, pretty nice. And then down here, we do have our Pentium 3, as well as design for Windows NT and 98 case badges. So this machine did read online that it was either pre-installed Windows 95, 98, or 2000. I do see that it does have the 98 case badge on here, so I'm going to assume that that's what's installed in this machine. All right, so we have a couple of additional indicators along the front. We do have what looks like, let's just take a look here. We do have a power. We do have the on light, so it must be our power charging and then on. We have a battery indicator, hard disk indicator, as well as a floppy disk or optical drive access indicator. So it's nice to have all those indicators. Over the years, they've disappeared, right? I mean, in some of the newer machines, you don't have any of that. You just sit there and wait and hope to heck your machine's booting without you're not even noticing some of the activity going on in your notebook. Okay, I think we're good there. We've done an overview of the machine. Overall, it's in really good shape. I'm really excited to get this plugged in and see if we're going to be able to do anything, see if it even boots to a BIOS or to an operating system. So let me go find my power cord for this and we'll continue on. Okay, so I powered the machine up and I hit F1 and we got into the system setup screen. Let me get a little closer to the panel so everybody can see what's written on there. According to this, we do have total memory is 128 megabytes of memory installed, so it must have 64 megabytes hidden somewhere on the motherboard, whether it's soldered on or in a user inaccessible place. We have password is not registered. Battery is in battery save mode equals full power. So, I mean, obviously you can probably go down and change that if you want to. Yeah, so we have the option to processing speed is high. CPU sleep mode is enabled. Display auto off. Hard disk auto off. LCD brightness. So just saying, hey, what do you want to do? And this is in full power mode. Peripheral pointing devices auto selected. External keyboard function disabled. USB legacy emulation disabled, so you could enable that so you can have an external USB plugged in. Parallel port mode is ECP. Hard disk mode is enhanced IDE, which is set to normal. Boot priority, so currently it's floppy, hard disk, then CD-ROM. Power on boot select is enabled. Under our display, we have power on displays auto selected. LCD display stretch is disabled, and TV configuration. So obviously, if you're hooking this up to an external device, you can have that configured. Others is power up mode is boot. CPU cache is enabled. Level 2 cache is enabled. Processor serial number is disabled. Auto power on is disabled, alarm volume is high, and system beep is enabled. Now, one thing, just because I saw the cache here, one thing I'll mention is that the level 2 cache that is on this machine is 256K because it is a Pentium 3 case badge that is here. So it's this machine either came with a Pentium 3 500 or a Pentium 3 600 processor. Now, these machines did come with Celeron CPUs, and when they did, they came in the 500 megahertz variety with the 128K of cache. So this machine is indicating that it is a Pentium 3, so it's either going to be the 500 or the 600 megahertz version. Now, let's go to the second page. It says page up, page down. There we are. So device configuration for all devices. I/O ports gives us our serial built-in modem and our parallel, shows you what comms they are and what resources they're using, which is very handy. Same with the PCI bus. The PC card itself, controller mode's auto-selected. Drives I/O, so hard disk is the primary IDE, and it shows the IRQ and, of course, the interrupt information. And then, of course, our CD-ROM over here is our secondary IDE. And our floppy disk as well, so it shows all the resources of the hardware, which is really great. So if you're in the process of trying to configure the hardware, say, in an operating system, and you're having difficulty, you can always reference this screen, because then it'll give you the options in here to give you the option to tweak them a little bit. All right, so we're going to hit escape exit without saving. Yes, because we didn't make any changes anyway, but I always like to do that. And let's see what comes up. It looks like a Windows 2000 boot screen so far. Well, that's a pleasant surprise. I'm a very big fan of Windows 2000, so that's very nice. One thing I'll also say about this system is it did indicate that it has an RTC, so a real-time clock battery. So that concerns me a little bit, not for the sake it has a battery, but some of these laptops don't have user accessible ones, so you're hunting for them. So this particular one came out of one of my Dells, and I believe it started to leak a little bit, and so it's very important to look for these sort of batteries and keep them out of the machines. if you're not going to be using them for long periods of time, because I mean, they will end up just leaking again. And after 24 years, I imagine whatever's in here is not functioning anyway. And then, of course, this one came out of my Dell CPX, and it is a Varta battery, of course, no less. And Varta is notorious for those barrel batteries that eat motherboards for lunch. And here we are booted to the desktop, our Windows 2000 on our Toshiba Pro 4200 series. And yeah, so I mean, it did take quite a bit to boot, to be honest with you. It is running, like I said, a Pentium 3 something, but we'll take a look at the task manager real quickly and look at the performance. But again, that hard disk is just chirping away. So I imagine, like I said, replacing the hard disk with, say, an SSD would make a huge difference using an adapter. And also memory. So currently we're showing of 128 megabytes of memory, only 10 available, and the rest are cached currently. 41 megs by the looks of things. So again, it wouldn't hurt to install, say, another 128 megabytes of RAM, or definitely upgrade it to the maximum of 320, which is what it says in the manual. And you can see that the CPU runs at 100% quite a bit. I don't know if you remember my Pentium 3, dual Pentium 3 slot 1 video, where we installed Windows 2000 and overcame some of the challenges with that. It really hummed along. It just sat at 0%. Literally those two processors just ate the operating system for lunch and loved it. Had no problem running the operating system. So I'm not sure about this particular machine, how well it handles 2000 versus, say, 98, which is probably what ended up coming with this machine. So this would have been upgraded to 2000 at some point. All right, I'm going to close that for now, and we're going to take a look at the computer device manager. Let's take a look at my computer under properties and see what we have. And even that's taking a few moments to load. So it says registered to user, Windows 2000 Service Pack 4, and some ID information, and just shows our RAM. It's AT compatible, x86 processor. Usually shows on the Pentium 3s when it comes up like that. I will say, though, I did read online that they do have recovery media for these machines, so it would be really good to see what this would look like as part of the experience. As you know, on this channel, when I go to redo these systems, I either go one way, which is full upgrades and do whatever I can to clean up the machine and get, say, Linux installed or something very usable, all the way to restoring them back to what they were like when they were brand new. So you get that nostalgic feeling and really experience what it was like back then. Let's take a look at our hard disk real quickly just to see if we have our 6 gigabyte or our 12 gig. It says MK1214 GAP, so my guess is going to be the 12 gigabyte version, but let's just take a look. If I can ever get my computer open. Like I said, this system is extremely sluggish, and I think the bottleneck is going to be that hard disk. Okay, under our hard disk, yeah, 11.2 gigs. So I'm showing, yeah, it's probably 12 gigabyte hard disk that we have installed. So this is the upgraded 12 gigabyte version. You saw how slowly that kind of went away. So definitely a bottleneck. Under our display adapters, we have S3 Ink Savage IX display driver. And according to the manual, this is a 2X AGP with 8 megabytes of video memory. Under our DVD, we have our Toshiba DVD-ROM, which we expected because this machine had the DVD option. And again, conversely, it would have the 24-speed CD-ROM drive if it didn't have this. There we do have our infrared Toshiba FIR port Type DO installed. And on our modems, we have a Toshiba branded internal V.90 modem. So it is a 56K modem. And it is interesting, everything so far is being branded Toshiba, which is nice because a lot of these machines back in the day had parts from different manufacturers depending on what it was. But so far we're running pretty well at the Toshiba level outside of the video card, of course. I think even the hard disk is Toshiba. Yeah, it is. Look at that. Okay, continuing on, our network card is well, it's completely blew my theory. So we have a 3Com megahertz 10100 LAN card bus PC card. So it was a PC card 10100 NIC that was installed. Now, the unfortunate thing about these cards is that if you don't have that dongle that plugs in, and if you don't have a spare one, I mean, the card's basically useless because it doesn't have the actual ports on it. You would need to have that little dongle that attaches into it to be able to replicate the port for the network card. But it's nice to see that. Now, I have a pile of PC cards I can use, so getting this on network won't be a problem. And of course, we have our controller for our two PC cards or PCMCIA. So under our sound card, yeah, so I did read this in the manual. We do have a Yamaha sound card, which is a Sound Blaster Pro compatible sound card. So no slouch, nice having that dedicated inside this computer. And of course, we do have our USB port, which I'm currently using for this USB mouse that I have. So it's really good to have all of this installed. I mean, overall, I love having all of these drivers installed. If anything, I'll take an image of this just to make sure I have all the drivers. And then I'll go on to archive.org. I'm not sure if Toshiba actually has anything online, but I'm going to see if I can find the recovery image for this, because it'd be really cool to see what kind of software that came with this machine. Okay, let's click on the start menu and see what we have. Under programs, we have what looks like a very basic install. So under accessories, I'm looking to see what we have. We have accessibility, communications, just our typical games that would have came with Windows 2000, so pretty generic. So we have Internet Explorer, we have Outlook Express, AC3 filter, we have AVG Free 8, so our AVG virus scan installed. I'm pretty sure those virus definitions are out of date now. We have Captain Voyager, whatever that is. I don't know if that's a game or not. I'm not clicking on it just in case it's not. CyberLink Power DVD, so it's nice to have the Power DVD software installed so you can just pop a DVD in and use it right away. DivX, so we have our codecs, our DivX player. That was a very popular player back in the day. I remember using that quite a bit. WinRAR, did anyone ever buy and register that? Let me know down in the comments. Xvid, so it must be another video. Yeah, so another video player. And then Adobe Reader 8 we have installed. So overall, I mean, for a machine that was thrown on a shelf, so far so good. I mean, yeah, there's some quirks with it, with the speed so far. I mean, as it starts to wake up and everything gets loaded, it's running very quickly now compared to what it was, but it did take quite a bit to boot up, and I would say it's probably that hard disk that's limiting that. If we were to change it over to an SSD, as I mentioned, probably make a huge difference for sure. Okay, before we go to our outro, I just want to talk about, normally at this stage, I'd play a couple games on the laptop and really showcase that, you know, a laptop of this era was still good for some gaming, even a professional series, especially with that S3 Savage 8 megabyte AGP2X video card that's in this system. Now, I did try using Quake 3 Arena and forget it. Anytime there was any animation on the screen, it just would not function. It would lock the computer up and the audio would fall over itself. Then I said, okay, we'll try something simpler. We'll just install NASCAR Racing. This is just an entry-level racing game that I have from Sierra, not from 1999. And, you know, it doesn't require any sort of 3D graphics and things like that. So I installed it, and other than the fact it took forever to install, it ran partially. But again, I still had some issues that required some tweaking, that it just wasn't playable. And then I tried Unreal, and usually Unreal works on everything, right? I mean, I was able to get it running on Windows 98 machines with entry-level video cards, dedicated graphics, things like that. But essentially, it just, again, wouldn't work. I was able to get it to 1024 by 768 resolution, which is the native resolution of this screen, all the way down to 640 by 480 to try to speed it up with low texture, low detail. And still, I was not able to get it going. Everything was so delayed. The audio was tripping over itself. The graphics was tripping over itself. I felt like it wanted to go, but it couldn't. So I'm wondering if the fact that I'm having trouble with all three of these games, even on systems that our specs very similar to this system, maybe it was possibly because of the RAM, the lack of memory. It has 128 megabytes of memory, but again, I would like to have a lot more, especially running Windows 2000. But then in terms of the disk access, I mean, we're running on that platter drive, that 12 gigabyte Toshiba drive, probably 5,400 RPM or less. So, you know, I'm probably thinking that's mostly the bottleneck. But again, keep me honest down in the comments, especially, like I said, the entry-level NASCAR or Unreal. Both are from that era, and I thought that would work, and it just didn't. And maybe that just totally justifies doing an upgrade on this system. Okay, enough of that. Let's go to our outro. And here we are at the end of the video with the Toshiba Satellite Pro 4200 series laptop that was donated graciously, like I said, to the channel from Ryan. So Ryan, thank you so much. The fact that you found this in a closet that's been stored for years and we were able to get up and running in itself is a feat, and I'm absolutely loving this. And, you know, quite frankly, we weren't able to play many games, or any games at all, unfortunately, but we're going to try to figure that out as we go. I mean, naturally, the system came with Windows 98 and was upgraded to Windows 2000, and quite frankly, I think I would like to do a full restoration on this computer utilizing the actual recovery CDs image versus actually doing it from scratch, just because I want to see what that experience was like. I also want to upgrade the memory in this computer. I have full access to the user accessible memory, at least. I do have some memory that will fit this computer, so I'd like to see if we can get that up a little bit. And also, I'd like to order in an SSD as well as that adapter, IDE to SSD adapter, and figure out how to access the hard disk in this computer and replace it. I honestly believe the access times is what's causing our problems. I mean, just by clicking around this operating system, accessing even my computer takes time. The hard drive light flashes solid. I think that that's what it is. Not necessarily the video card that's in here, but I'll rule that to judgment later once we do some additional tests during that restoration video. And rest assured, even on a laptop that's 24 years old, still running today, I can play pinball, no problem. That said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. We're hitting close to 13,000 subscribers, so every subscriber counts. Thank you so much. It really tells YouTube you like what you're seeing. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Please leave a comment down below. What do you think about this laptop? Did you own one of these back in the day? Do you think that the hard disk is one of the bottlenecks that we're experiencing? Please let me know. I respond to absolutely every comment. Always making new content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.